Ever since I can remember, I've been somewhat obsessed with the paranormal. The study of ghosts and spirits have always appealed to my inquisitive nature. When I think back to how it first started, I think back to my parents. They used to tell me ghost stories to put me to sleep. Even though they were worried the stories would give me nightmares, I insisted, and I loved every minute of it. I remember camping with my family or having sleepovers with friends and telling each other ghost stories in an effort to frighten those around us. As the years went by, my love for the supernatural waxed and waned. Usually, once autumn rolls around, my interest peaks, though following the immediate winter months, my focus returns towards my mundane life. I work for an industrial company processing numbers for them. I spend day after day, hour after hour inputting data and printing out spreadsheets for my bosses. It's not the greatest job in the world, but it's definitely not the worst. And the pay is decent as well. Decent enough for me to have my own little house and car. I bought the property the previous year and spent the majority of my time fixing it up. That's how I managed to get it so cheaply, with my salary. The place, when I bought it, was quite run down. It was still livable, sure, but it definitely needed some work. Hell, I wouldn't invite anyone over for the first few months at the risk of being embarrassed. Each paycheck I made went into refurbishing and refurnishing my house. Though over the months, the need to dump an entire paycheck into my house became less and less. After new paint, electrical work, flooring, appliances, and air conditioning were all taken care of, the house was starting to look like a proper family home. I'll really miss that place. A few months ago, I was watching a paranormal show on TV about a group of ghost investigators traveling the world and exploring creepy locations, in the hopes of capturing a spirit on tape. These shows, as cheesy as they are really enjoyable to me. Sure, some of them are fake and go the extra distance with overdramatic acting to make a trivial noise seem scary. A footstep here or there, the shuffling of gravel, a door occasionally closing brings on the hysterics. It becomes comical after a while. However, my favorite part of those shows are the EVPs, the electric voice phenomenon. Basically, the investigators take a tape recorder, ask an empty room a few questions while recording, and when they play it back, otherworldly voices can be heard speaking through it. While I'm sure these are faked to some extent, the idea of being able to hear supernatural voices appealed to me greatly. The ability to have physical proof in my hand that something does exist on the other side. The show I was watching had a slew of social media plugs at the end, and after looking through them, I found that they had their own website where they actually sell the equipment they use in the show. While most of the equipment was far out of my price range, and I really didn't see a need for a hypersensitive IR energy reading camera, I did see something that caught my eye. It was one of those digital recorders they use for EVP sessions. Some of them were extremely lavish, sporting over 100 different buttons and settings, and a few were more on the basic side. Even the most basic one was around $40. I'm not sure what compelled me to buy it. The thought of finally indulging in my long-standing passion, or maybe I just make poor decisions from time to time. Either way, I purchased the device and actually forgot about it until there was a knock on my door. After waiting for a couple of weeks, my interest was reignited. I spent the day reading the booklet that came with it, simple instructions and maintenance for the device. That night, I tried it out. I stayed up until well into the morning asking questions, playing back empty static and repeating. Once the sky outside started becoming orange with the rising sun, I set the recorder down and decided to get some sleep, relieved that I had the day off that day. Upon waking up and getting ready for the remainder of the day, I once again looked to the recorder that I had purchased. I had considered that maybe my house wasn't haunted in the first place, hence my failure to capture anything. It's true, I hadn't experienced or even sensed anything abnormal since I moved in, so I couldn't be sure. After getting dressed, I made my way over to the device I had left on my nightstand and noticed that I had left it recording all while I slept. Chuckling to myself, I wondered if I could hear myself snoring or maybe even talking in my sleep. So I rewound the tape to a random spot and clicked play. For about 30 seconds, I couldn't hear anything. Then I heard a shuffle. Sounded like blankets being tossed around in. Another minute went by and I was about to turn it off when I heard something else. Sounded like a whisper. And after replaying it multiple times, I've determined what it says. To say I was shocked would be an understatement. Hearing this voice sent chills down my spine like I had never felt before. While I did consider that it could have been me talking in my sleep, it just didn't feel like that was the case. I spent the rest of the day listening to the whole recording carefully, and there were only 4 times I captured a voice. Whether it was the same one, I can't be sure. Hearing each of these were more chilling than the last. I wasn't sure what to do at that point. I thought about it for a while, then considered recording myself one more time while I slept just to be sure. I got ready for bed early that night. The sun was still in the sky, albeit descending quickly. I made sure each door and window were locked tightly before setting up my recorder and steadily drifting off to sleep. I was jolted awake at 2 a.m. by something. I couldn't be sure, but it felt like danger was very close to me. I sat up in a cold sweat and glanced around my room in a haze. I remember asking aloud if anyone was here with me, but received no sign. It was much harder falling asleep the second time, but I eventually managed to. When I woke up, I quickly hooked up my headphones to the recorder and played back everything from that night. I could only listen to it twice. The first thing I heard that unnerved me was the sound of my bedroom door opening. I know for a fact that I had locked each and every door, yet the sound of it opening was clear as day. About 30 minutes after that, I heard the first voice. Once again, it was the same statement as the previous night. I continued the tape and didn't hear anything for another hour. The next voice I heard said, to me, it sounded like someone was asking for help, to save them from something, though I can't be sure that's entirely what they meant. The next statement still gives me chills when I think about it, as it was the cause that woke me up in the middle of the night. The voice said, "Kill him now." It was almost as if a command were being issued, my own personal execution order. Following that, I could hear myself stirring and then ask if anyone was here with me. The response I heard to that question turned my blood cold. 50 of us are here. The thought of 50 spirits standing in my room all watching me while I slept terrified me. The following week, I had put my house up for sale and moved into a single-bedroom apartment. It's safe to say I don't have any interest in the paranormal anymore. And if anyone out there still does possess an interest in ghosts, just be careful. I'm not sure whether my amateur investigating had opened a door to spirits, or if they had just been quiet all along, waiting for someone to talk to them. Ever since listening to that recording, I can't help but feel like I'm constantly being watched now. Constantly being followed. I may have to find a new apartment soon, because I'm starting to hear my door open and close in the middle of the night. Take my advice. Don't record yourself while you sleep. You may not always like what you find.